Mr. Smith, could we have a roll call of the council, please?
Mr. Horton?
Here.
Mr. Rastetter?
Here.
Mrs. Rennie?
Here.
Mrs. Showerman?
Here.
Mr. Shank?
Here.
Chairman Anderson?
Here. Next, as in any public meeting that we have, we always offer an opportunity for the public to be heard. At this particular meeting, there was no one that called in previous, so anyone that would like to be heard will have 3 minutes. So are there any members of the public that wish to be heard? Are there any members of the public that wish to be heard? Anybody online? Okay. And finally, are there any members of the public that wish to be heard? Hearing none, we'll continue on with the meeting. There are no previous minutes from council meetings. And are there any reports of members of council today? Seeing none, we'll continue forward with our one item of business, which is the discussion and resolution for the vacancy of the 1st District County Council seat, which has been vacated by Kim Clear, District 1, which is Mill Creek Township. Under the Home Rule Charter, County Council is put in charge of filling vacancies through a resolution and majority of members of council. And so that is the item of business, and I would open that up for discussion with members of council. We do have before us the resolution, and council members have before them the both the Home Rule Charter and then the Administrative Code under Section 15, the filling of the vacancies, which is why we're meeting today, with the importance of the business that continues to move forward with this council and county government. The work that's being done in searching for a clerk for next year's council and all of the other business of council. We're meeting today about this vacancy, and we have a resolution on the agenda, and I guess technically, unless there's a motion for the resolution or a second to that, there's really no further discussion on in any process or persons or anything of that nature.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Rastetter.
I would move that to nominate Kim's wishes for her replacement was Mr. Terry Scatella of Mill Creek. And because of his superior qualifications for the job, and that was her wishes. So moved.
Okay, thank you. We do have a motion.
And I'll second that.
So we have a motion by Councilman Rastetter, and Mr. Shank, I believe the motion was seconded by Councilwoman Showerman. So I'll recognize her on that. And then that, but thank you. And then that would open up for further discussion, bringing a name forward under that resolution.
Discussion.
Councilman Horton.
Thank you, Chairman Anderson. This will be the second time that I've gone through this process in my 8 years here on council. First time was, unfortunately, with the death and loss of a colleague. And at that time, we felt the sea. We underwent a process while Mr. Scatella is a great candidate for the position. Clearly, the nominations, I guess, have been closed. I want to be on the record as saying that I think in the interest of public trust, that this process should not be so abbreviated, but that we should at least let the public weigh in, or not be so much weigh in, but we should inform the public that the vacancy existed. Because, you know, I left here the other night, there was no mention, although we talked beforehand, of Councilwoman Clear resigning. And to do anything less than that, undergo a process, I fear does not shine a very good light on this body. It reeks of a backroom, backdoor patronage job. I must say that Mr. Scatella is a fine man. I don't have a dog in the race. I don't have a candidate that I wish to put forward. I don't have one that I favor. I favor the process. Having said that, we're about to vote on this. And again, I want to be on the record that my recommendation is that we forego this today and at least take the first step, 10 days, to allow it to be appreciated by the public. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Horton. Are there any comments or questions from other members of council? Councilwoman Rennie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can appreciate everything that was just said by Councilman Horton. And perhaps under circumstances that might be different, I might be in lockstep with him. In this case, I don't think I am. I think I'm more in line with the nomination, the first nomination that we received, and the second on that nomination. And part of what I'm falling back on, I guess, here, as well as we're in extraordinary circumstances. We've had an enormous amount of turnover in county council personnel. We stand to have more turnover. It's been a year, 2 years of upheaval with COVID and changes to the way everyone has done business. Also, the prescribed procedures for filling a vacancy on county council do not give a spirit of how it should go, or ideally it should be this way. It's not presented that way in the Home Rule Charter, nor is it presented that way in the administrative code. In fact, it gives a lot of leeway without comment to county council to fill the position within 10 days of the vacancy with no other comments on it. So in the interests of the stability, I think, of county government, and in the interests of having things move forward in a productive manner, knowing that we have a transition in front of us in administration as well, I will be throwing my support to the nomination of Terry Scatella. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilwoman Rennie. Are there any other comments from members of council?
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Rastetter.
Just a few comments on Andre's comments. This has been talked about since the election. So I don't know that the public has not been informed. I think the public has been informed. And as far as the process goes, like Mary said, it's no real clear outlines here, except for the time, and since the time is so short, I don't know why we haven't done this sooner. I mean, you had every opportunity to bring it up at any meeting. And the last time it happened was when Phil Fatika died, and Kathy was his wife, and which is a normal process to not let the wife have the first choice out of respect. You know, out of respect for the death of her husband, and knowing that she is the closest thing or person to him, that it should be her or up to her who gets nominated. Just like with Kim here, Kim was duly elected to that seat and should know exactly who would best represent her and her constituents to fill that seat. So I just view that this is a stall tactic, and I don't know that the nominations are closed, but I don't hear any other nominations coming up. And Mr. Scatella is more than qualified to take the seat, and that's who Kim wishes to take the seat. I rest my case. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Resta. Councilman Horton?
Thank you, Chairman Anderson. Well, I'm not here to debate my comments with anyone. And I'm not here to offer delay tactics. In my 8 years here, I've never played those political type of games. I'm simply saying that the action that we're about to take today could have just as easily been taken care of 5 days from now, 7 days from now, or even on the 10th day. And that is not a matter of course that the surviving spouse receives the seat that their spouse held. In fact, it goes against all our democratic processes, because this isn't a monarchy, and we don't pass those things down. No one inherits anything, and that's why we're here. If it was simply a matter of inheritance, or simply a matter of the exiting council person's wishes, we would have no need for the process. And while the process gives us wide latitude within the first 10 days, while it gives us wide latitude, I would implore you. It's a little late now, we haven't moved and seconded. But it would have been nice if we just would have slowed it down. And for the record, the Scatellas are family friends. So it's not an anti-Terry, it's not an anti-Kim, it's not a delay tactic, it's a pro-citizen stance. I too will be voting for Mr. Scatella, since the vote is going forward. But I think it would have been a lot more in the interest of transparency and the public trust for appearance sakes. It just looks like horrible optics. I rest, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Horton. And if any other comments from members of council? I'm going to make some comments myself. And I agree with Councilman Horton that there needs to be a process, and that's exactly what we're doing here today. Although the process may not be definitive in what the home rule and the administrative code set forward, it's the process that we have. And the process is that county council, whether it's a county council vacancy or a row office, I might add, except for the district attorney's office, this council has the authority to appoint the successor to fill those vacancies to the end of that term, or to a special election that might be set forth. And if we don't do so within a 30-day period, we abdicate our right to the courts, and the courts make that decision. This is not, in my opinion, being rushed. We set the agenda and gave public notice, as were we required to do. Why are we not waiting for 7, 10 days from now? Well, people are going on vacation. The holidays are coming up. It's very difficult schedules. The timeliness of the situation caused for us to move quickly to make sure we had a resolution, because this council has a responsibility to take care of the business of this council and this county's government. And so we're meeting to do that. And if we elapse past 10 days, we're getting into New Year's, and then we get into a new administration and turnover of the county clerk and the search for that clerk. So there seems to be a consensus of who that replacement would be, and there was no reason for council to delay any further in doing that. And so that's why we're meeting, to follow through not only with the process that we have and that's put before us, but most importantly, stepping up, whether it's a hard decision to make or not, and taking the criticism, whether the criticism comes or not, and making the decisions that we have to make to take our responsibility to move this county forward. That's why we're meeting. That's the process that we're using, and that's what we base our decisions on. As far as the candidate that's put before us, I think all members of council would agree moving forward, outside of Mr. Horton, of course, who has 8 years of experience. It's a very young council with substantial turnover, and we'll have substantial turnover next year. To have somebody who has served in public office before, who understands how meetings are conducted, ordinances, resolutions, that can bring some experience and consistency and knowledge to play, I think was important to all the members of council. And it certainly was something that was on the mind of the member of council that vacated the seat. I certainly respect greatly her opinions and her understanding and knowledge of the people that she represents in Mill Creek and the people that she's worked with. And so we have before us the business that we need to take care of. So without any other members of council that wish to be heard, Mr. Smith, we do have a motion and a second for the name of Terry Scatella, and could we have a roll call vote on resolution 70 of 2021, and if you could read that for us in title only with a name included, please. Or actually, if you would read the whole resolution for us with the name included.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I was going to suggest perhaps that I read it with a blank, and then if it's not too much trouble, those members who already put forward the motion would put forth another motion to amend the resolution, just as we would in any other meeting.
So is it, Mr. Rastetter, is that okay with you? So the motion would be to consider, with the motion that you had made then, is to consider the resolution. After he reads it, you would make an amendment then to add the name. We would vote to add the name, and then we would vote on the resolution.
Okay, fine.
Is that amenable to those that made the motion and seconded it?
Resolution number 70, 2021, resolution to fill the vacancy in County Council District 1.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Rastetter?
I make a motion to add the name of Mr. Terry Scatella to the resolution for consideration.
Thank you. We have a motion to amend Resolution 70 to add the name of Terry Scatella.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to amend by Councilman Rastetter, seconded by Councilwoman Showerman. Are there any comments or questions on the amendment? Seeing none, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote on the amendment?
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Scheck,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Thank you. Then, Mr. Smith, may we have a roll call vote on Resolution 70 as amended?
Mr. Rastetter,
Yes.
Mrs. Rennie,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Scheck,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes. Thank you. On behalf of this council and Erie County, we certainly want to welcome Terry Scatella to this council and the next future council. Is there any other business to come before council today? Seeing none, before we adjourn, as we mentioned at our regularly held council meeting, the reorganization meeting of Erie County Council will occur on January 3rd in room 114A here at the Erie County Courthouse. That will immediately take place after the swearing in of the new council members. That occurs about 10 a.m., I believe, and the meeting here usually happens around noon. And then that council, when reorganized, will set the 2022 schedule and the finance committee personnel and all the regular meetings to be advertised. With that said, there's no other business to come before the council in the special meeting today, and I would ask for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
We're adjourned.